Hello and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Carrie and Dani. I am Carrie, that is Dani. Um, just a happy new year to all of you. I know it'll be a few days past by the time this gets posted and enjoying kind of a blustery winter day here in the Midwest. And I know in New Zealand, I'm sure the weather is quite different down there. Dani, what's going on in your down under? I don't suppose you can call that's Australia, but you're close.
We're still down under.
Down under.
Actually, the last couple of days we've been having the coldest summer ever. Hence why I'm wearing
Wow.
wool jumpers and a blanket on my knees. So
Yep.
not
Little
as
extra
cold as where
blanket.
you are, but surprisingly cold down here.
Yeah.
Um, I was just thinking, Carrie, did you have anything you wanted to talk about today? Because if you didn't, I had something on my mind. Where are
Um,
you at?
I don't really have anything fresh. I mean, I could come up with something if I needed to, of course, but
We
you
can always find something to talk about, you and I.
always something.
Um, so this might be a little shorter than normal. I've been thinking about grief. What got me thinking about it was the series that we've just done on relief
Mm,
and some of the comments we read that people posted and things. And I think that often relief, I think, is an initial reaction. And after that, there's things that get deeper. So it got me thinking about grief and the sadness and grief under some of the comments that you put up. And then I was experiencing grief, reading some of the really hardline comments that didn't have any space or room for negotiations or thinking something different about God. And of course, like you said, Happy New Year. A couple of my friends have had firsts this Christmas. They've had firsts without family that's either moved away or family that's passed on.
mm,
Um, and I don't know about you, but I don't think that I grew up in a culture that handles grief really well. And I don't think I grew up with a lot of stories that helped me understand grief. And so I wanted to share a therapeutic story about grief. So, or a parable about grief. I'm not exactly sure what quite to call it.
mhm.
And it's, yeah, so I was going to tell you what, doesn't matter how I wrote it, but I'll tell you a story. So the story is about a really cunning burglar.
Mm,
Okay. So a really cunning burglar. So I wrote the story originally for a little child that had experienced a trauma. So I'll just quickly, as I tell it, upgrade it in my head to make it a more adult version since I'm talking to you. So imagine you come home from work and the door's open and you know you'd left it closed and you walk in and there's not a giant mess, but you know somebody's been in your house.
mm,
And
mhm.
you look around and you look around and you see, oh, crap. And so the basics, this guy, I'm going to call it the guy that's broken in, sorry, but the guy that's broken in, he's taken the new Xbox you got the kids for Christmas.
Mm,
Taken the new Xbox, left the television because it was giant and mounted to the wall. Don't know if it is in your house or not, but we'll just pretend, right? So the television's giant and mounted to the wall, can't carry the television off. So it takes the Xbox, the PlayStation, opened some cupboards in the lounge room, found that little sneaky hiding place where you put your new tablet so that people can't see the tablet when they look in the window, found your cameras. And so you start writing a list for the police of all the things that have been stolen. And it's just so sad. It's just so sad. You think about not just the fact that it's gone and you worked, but there's all the levels of grief. So it's gone. So there's sadness. Then there's sadness for the amount of hours that you worked to earn the money to buy that thing. And then the
mhm.
joy the children had when they played with it. And then the sadness they're going to experience. So you haven't even told your kids it's been stolen yet, but you're already feeling on top of your sadness, their sadness. And so often then what happens is you start looking around the rest of the house and you think, oh, I think he's been in my bedroom. But
Mm.
nothing's really obvious. Nothing's obvious. And so you write up the initial list for the police, you hand it over, you say, this is what he's taken, and then you grieve. You are just so sad for the things that are gone, sad for the loss. You tell the kids they're sad for the loss as well. And as you know, as a parent, you carry all of it. And then there's all those other things that we won't get into because someone's been in your space and the lack of safety and where the place that was supposed to be a safe place for you to hide from the world suddenly doesn't feel so safe anymore. So there's distant levels of emotional grief because of what this guy that broke into your house has done.
Mhm.
But time passes on and you get over it. It fades into the distance and you still worry and you still think about things and you still think, oh no, to lock the door, and you get to the end of the drive, but you come home and double check it and put up security cameras and things like that. But time passes on and you get a year or two down the track and it feels like a distant memory.
Mhm.
And you sort of fall into the rhythm of what was before. And you tick it along one day, and so let's imagine that you've got a boy that's about to turn 12, and you think, oh, I know. I think he's old enough. I have that absolutely amazing antique Swiss Army knife that my dad had when he was in World War One, and I've kept it all this time. And it's so special, and I remember the day that Dad gave it to me. I think it's time to pass it on to my boy. And so, about a week out before his birthday, you start going through everything. And you know exactly where you'd left it. It was
Mhm.
in a shoebox in the top of the wardrobe, behind another box, completely out of sight. And so off you go in there, and you get into there, and you pull out the boxes, and you get to the shoebox down the back, and you think, it's not there. So you check a few more boxes. But you know because you're one of these organized people that keeps a list of what was in each box. And so you know that it's not been crossed off the list. It would have been in that original box and it's not there. And it takes you a while. But sometime in the middle of the night, in that quiet space where your brain doesn't always let you sleep, but you want to, and it starts to think because there's nothing else around, you start thinking, I think the guy that burgled our house took it. There's been nothing else.
Yeah.
There was stuff in the bedroom disturbed. I know he'd been in there, but I never ever thought that actually a thief might look through the boxes and put everything back so I didn't see it. But you know that he took it. And in
Mhm.
that moment, 2 years later, your heart breaks again with grief from something that happened 2 years before.
Mhm.
And it's just so sad. And then it's sad because you've you've lost a whole generational story.
Mhm.
Can you tell your son about it? This is what happened. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. This is what I wanted to give you, but I didn't have it to give to you anymore. And life goes on.
Mhm.
Life goes on. And another year or two later, you're coming up to a birthday for your daughter. And it's a special one this time because she's 16. And you want to make that special cake. Okay. And you know your granny had a special shaped bunt pan for making
Mhm.
fancy cakes in. You cannot buy this shaped bunt pan anymore. And it's one that was made for special occasions in your family. And it was just right because it had little flower decorations on the top. And you're like, yay! I'm gonna surprise somebody with this family tradition.
Mhm.
And you go looking for your bunt pan and you can't find it. And again, the same thing. You wonder what happened, and you look and you look and you look, and you realize and you think, why on earth would a thief have taken a bunt pen? And you don't really have a clue. But there's nowhere else it could have been because they're all
Right.
stacked in a neat little box and they're nice and tidy.
Mhm.
And I could keep going on and on and on and on. But I guess what I wanted to talk about was um, grief's not a one and done thing.
Mhm.
It's not grief's not a one and done thing. And so often I talk to people, even currently, I talk to people on Facebook and I talk to people in groups and people I know in the community, and so often they're surprised. They're surprised. They're surprised by where grief pops up. They're
Mhm.
surprised sometimes by moments of overwhelming. "Oh," and they think, but I should be over it. I should have got over it. It happened so long ago. And now that I've started telling you my grief story, it's not just because of what we read.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it, sorry. So personally for me, I don't think it's on top of my mind just because of everything that we read when we were through those articles we reviewed on the comments on people feeling relief when they left the church and things. But reading all the comments of what people said and where they were and how they were.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not going to come out all tidy because I haven't had time to think about this clearly. But talking to you now, I'm realizing that it's while I wanted to tell the story for everyone else, it still happens. It still happens to me.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a year ago. It's coming up almost now to a year since I resigned my membership in the church. And I know that even though that initial feeling of grief is done, that there will always be things that keep popping up. And I wanted a context for people to not be surprised. To not be surprised when, say, they feel God's calling them to trust Him and do something, but they have no trust.
Right.
I don't want people to be surprised. And I don't want people to fall into self-contempt and to be angry with themselves. And that's something that I've had to learn is not, because what was it like for you? I found, with the version of Adventism that I grew up in, there was a lot of guilt and a lot of, oh, well, if you had a better relationship with God, this would come easier.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you can't love that person, three or four pews down, pray for them, fake it till you make it, act like you like them, and keep going back to God. And if He fills you with enough love, then you'll be able to be nice to them.
Right. Yep.
Um, you'll be and obviously, if you can't be nice to them and love your enemy, it's because you don't have a right relationship with God. And it's not always said that clearly, but it's clearly implied.
Right.
And so this is just like one little tiny version of it, but it's another way for me to explain the whole what I'm thinking about grief. And that is that we can't grieve something we didn't know we'd lost. In my story about grief, nobody was sad about the pocket knife for 2 years.
Right. Because they didn't know it was gone.
Nobody knew it was gone, so nobody was sad. And so as I go through, and some of the people listening will be further along their journey of leaving a high control religion, and I know you're further along than me. And some people might not have even considered it yet, or some of the people that end up listening to this might be brand new out. But you can't grieve what you don't know you've lost.
Right.
And I really don't want people to be surprised when or feel like grief hits them out of the blue. I don't want people to fall into contempt or get angry with themselves and think, oh, why am I sad about this now?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't grieve what you don't know you've lost. And so one of the Facebook church groups I'm in is called Deconstruction Church.
Mm-hmm.
And Christy that runs that had put up a thing saying, list off the cognitive dissonances that you grew up believing. And the winner gets a mind explosion or something silly like that. And my initial thought was, oh, apart from like the really basic cognitive dissonance, I think I've already talked about once before, but a couple of the ones listed, I thought I don't really have any. I'm fine. It's all good. I'm fine. And then, of course, the brain starts thinking about them, and 4 or 5 hours later, so this was a couple of days ago, 4 or 5 hours later, they start popping into your head, and
Mm-hmm.
um,
And
so
it
yeah, yeah, go for it.
the whole grieving process, and in general grief, as far as you talk about grief as the loss of a loved one or a friend, loss of a social group, your church, something like that. nobody can and nobody can tell another person exactly how that grieving process should look or feel, even if it's somebody who had lost their mother and you had also lost your mother. It's a different, it can be a very different relationship, you know. um Even siblings who lose a parent, those siblings can look at the parent very differently. And it's a very different relationship. We've all had a different relationship with our church, with our friends, with our family, and the loss of that relationship or the loss of that part of your life is always done differently and looked at very differently. And for me, my experience with the church, I believe, was probably pretty different from yours, as far as what we were doing, and how we looked at it. And I was thinking last night as I was going to sleep, just thinking about, you know, networking, and in the Adventist system, I could, if you had randomly showed up at my church here in the Midwest and we had never met before, we would have gotten it down to 3 degrees of separation.
Yep.
We've already established that you knew somebody that I know, you know,
Yep.
1, 2 degrees. I'm not sure how they decide the degrees. And that's not unique. I could go to an Adventist church in Europe and within a few degrees of separation, that network. Now that's not there as much. You show up at a Baptist church, nobody knows who you are, or nobody knows your family, so that's something that's thinking about that it's definitely a loss.
I'd forgotten about that. I can remember turning up. I remember meeting someone in New Zealand and then visiting them in America and meeting their ex-wife and becoming good friends with her. And then she invited me to come and visit. And I rock up and she said, "Oh, sorry, I've got some other friends that live way up in the mountains at the back of LA, come down to visit me." And she introduces me to her friend and her husband. And within 10 minutes of discussing, realized that the friend's husband was actually first cousin to my roommate in college.
Yeah, doesn't I mean, especially if you were part of the Adventist education system at all, and I went through all the way through high school. And then my husband mostly did public school until seminary. But being in seminary, that's how he went to seminary with somebody that So
That's crazy. Yeah. I, I just want to come back to grief again for a second,
Mhm.
because it's all connected to that. And while you were talking, I was just reminding me again that it's just, we can't grieve what we don't know that we've lost.
Yeah.
And so when you started listing off some of the basic things that we had lost in the church, you are so right with all those things. They're all things that we lose when we leave. And then I think that there's there's other things that we lose that we don't always talk about. Um, trust.
Mm.
You lose
Mhm.
trust in people that have said, "God told me this." Trust in people that have said, "This person's a prophet that speaks on behalf of God."
Mhm.
Um, there are people I know that are so incredibly smart. They are so smart, and one I can think of, or one or two in particular, that are actually church pastors that I just admire. And I've known them since I was 14 or 15 years old. Some of them a bit old, later than that. And I spent so long when I was sitting on the edges of church, and when I first read that book, The White Lie, and I read the things that talked about how Ellen White really had plagiarized stuff, and not even just the plagiarism, but how she contradicts herself and where it doesn't agree with the Bible and things can't be proven, but somehow I'd made them all make sense in my head. It's still hard. I look at some of these people, even though I know, and I'm so, so happy for what God's taught me, and I'm happy for the freedom I experience. But I mean, there'll be people listening here that say, I don't feel like not free. Well, neither did I. It's taken me a year to be happy for freedom because I didn't realize I wasn't free.
Mm.
But I still sometimes I look at these people and think, what if I'm wrong?
Yeah.
What if I'm what if I'm wrong? How can these people that are way, way, way smarter than me, that still believe 100% in the church, the investigative judgment, and Ellen White,
Mm-hmm.
how can they be, how can, if they believe it and they're smarter than I am, then maybe I'm wrong. Um, and so it's deeper sometimes than just losing your social group and your church and things.
Mm-hmm.
It's been really hard. And these are people that I trusted, and I have no reason not to trust them. I mean, they would never ever, they would, you know, they'd give you the shirt off their back and they'd never do anything to physically harm you. They're amazing
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yeah.
But I still look at them and think, you 100% believe this. Does that mean I'm wrong?
Right.
Um, and so there's layers of grief to all these things.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember the first time in book club, I was, I don't know, a couple of weeks back, so one of the ladies, and I don't want to share it right now, let's I get to know some of the listeners better, it asked me a question about something. And I realized that I didn't, I I knew the theory answer to the question they asked.
Mm-hmm.
And in theory, I could share something, but I couldn't honestly share what they needed from my heart because I didn't have it. I had a thought in my head, but I didn't have any emotional resources to share or give to them on
Mm-hmm.
that topic. Um, and I didn't have any emotional resources to share on that topic or to be there for them because I grew up in a church that never taught them to children.
Right. We were
And
taught
so,
not to trust our feelings.
um, it's just, so yeah, so as I go along, every so often I find sometimes it's a like a person, sometimes it's a physical thing, sometimes it's a theology thought,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's an emotion that I'd like to give somebody and share with them to support them. And every so often, even though it's been a year, I find there's moments of sadness when I realize that I don't have that because of the church I grew up in. I don't have that because I grew up in a high demand religion or a high control religion that controlled
Mm-hmm.
so many parts of my life.
Well, and you
Um,
had shared with me that let me see, the story about the eggshell. Where did that go?
oh,
Let me find it.
that no, I can remember that. That really annoyed me. I actually was in one of the Facebook groups I was in, and I actually asked the person, "Why are you sharing this story?" And they hadn't even considered really what I'd asked. And I was sharing a story about a chicken when it's hatched.
Mm-hmm.
Um, does the baby chicken hatch out of its egg, out of the egg that's kept it safe and nurtured it and grown it,
Right.
and look at it and resent it?
Right.
And they say, no, the chicken doesn't have any feelings about the egg that it hatches out of. And the person talking was saying, I'm so thankful for the high demand, high control evangelical religion that made me who I am. And I didn't have any of those thankful feelings. Um,
It's really it's and that's something that my husband and I have talked about it a lot too, where would we have been if, well, one, I mean, if it wasn't for the Seventh Day Adventist Church, I wouldn't exist. Period. Because my parents met at Andrews University and got married.
okay, yeah.
So, that um but if you go, I think for my own mental health, I've had to not dwell on it because you can't what if yourself to death all the time. What if we had done this? What if we had done this? What if how would life have been differently, if my husband had chosen a different career path? Because there were opportunities to go from pastoral ministry to church to treasury work in the conference office, and he didn't do that. We did the education route with business management and stuff. But um I think I'm thankful for what's happened in the past because it's brought me now to here now, and we're in a very good place.
Yeah. I
But
understand.
could we have
Yeah,
been in a
sorry.
better place if we had, so it's,
Yeah.
and that's one of those things we could just sit and did you ever watch the movie Sliding Doors?
Yes.
Yeah. So,
But yeah, it's I agree with you, but I think it's I agree with you. I 100% agree with you, but I still think there is a time and place for grief.
oh, 100%.
Um, I mean, so for me, all right, so okay, try this. For me, what I found when I think about it, there are things I wanted to do. There were opportunities I had in my 20s, jobs that would have landed me in my dream job.
Mm,
Opportunities that would have landed me in my dream job and where I still have a dream. My dream job hasn't changed. What changed is how I feel about it.
hmm.
So in my 20s, it was like, I'm so amazing. I have given up this opportunity for my biggest dream because I love God. I sacrificed my dreams to follow God, like Romans 12, that the whole renewing of your mind. Um,
Look at you go, such a good Christian.
oh my goodness, yep. And I sacrificed all the stuff for, and it doesn't matter because we were taught what you sacrifice for God, you're going to get back in heaven. And I do believe that. Okay. I
Mhm.
do believe that. There's no problems with believing that. But where the problem and the grief lies is that I sacrificed my dream job. I sacrificed a dream that 30 years later I still have.
Mm,
Okay. What hurt is to realize I didn't sacrifice my dream for God. I sacrificed it for a lie of what I was told God wanted my life to be. But I was all self-righteous and I was okay to sacrifice it for God. And I'd still sacrifice it for God.
hmm.
I didn't. I sacrificed it for a lie I was given.
Yeah.
Okay. A lie I was taught by the church about God didn't expect me to do. A lie that said you can't have that dream job because you won't be home before sunset on a Friday night in the middle of winter when the sun sets at 5 o'clock.
Right.
Okay. And while I believed that that was required by God to get to heaven, it was an okay trade. But to discover that you sacrificed your dream for nothing because people lied to you and you were born
Hmm.
into a religion and you didn't have a chance to know any different. Now that's really sad.
Yeah.
And it's not just something that I grieve once and it's over and done with. And
Hmm.
I don't dwell on it and I don't think about it all the time. But every so often, because my dream job had horses in it, so every so often
Hmm.
I still meet someone. I met someone a while back and they said, "Oh, you've got to meet my friend. You'd love her." And I'm like, "She's got my dream job."
Oh,
And of course the sadness comes back again. And it's that whole story of you don't grieve what you know you've lost. And it was a
right.
slightly different version of what would have been at my dream job.
Hmm.
And see, so I guess I wanted to talk to you and also to talk for anyone else listening. I wanted people not to be surprised when grief randomly pops up
Yeah.
and think, oh well, it was ages ago, I should have gotten over it, because you can't grieve what you don't know you've lost. And when you've left a whole high control religion, um, it's going to pop up. Even you, Carrie, it's going to pop up. It's going to sneak up and surprise you
Oh,
at the
yeah.
oddest
There's
times.
certainly been times for sure.
It'll sneak up and you'll think, oh, I don't have that because,
Hmm.
because of, yeah,
Just
because a thief lied to me and stole what God really wanted to tell me.
yeah. And we believed that what we were doing was what God was requiring of us. And I think the whole time God is going, that's not what I meant. That's not and I think he really wants us to be happy. I know there is certainly an element of sacrifice in the Christian life. But I think we all can look back and I had, a few employment opportunities that I had to, or I flat out just said, I'm not going to go to your required continuing education courses on a Saturday because I'm not going to. You say that in the interview, and you just didn't get the job.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because they could come up with other reasons that they didn't want to hire you. So it's a lot, and grief is always a process, and I hate the phrase "get over it." Hate it, just hate it, because when of course I've attended several funerals over the years, many as the pastor's wife, and how people will, oh, they're not in any pain anymore. I know exactly how you feel, blah, blah, blah. No, just I'm sorry for your loss. That's all. I mean, what else can you say? Because you don't know exactly what people are feeling.
Yeah.
Be there, be a listening ear. And I think that's for us, for the two of us, I think part of our mission to do this channel is to have conversations about this. And if people want to join the conversation, leave us a comment, and we'd love to bring you on, even, or write us, give us your email address or make comments, and we can have a conversation. We'd love to listen. I think we both bring a unique perspective to this whole process.
They
It's
can join our
process.
Facebook group too. They
Yep.
can join our Facebook group if they want.
Hmm.
And for anyone listening, I just want you to know that I have no desire to share some of the things that have caused me grief and the things that are painful. I've got no desire to share them with the whole world. I'm really quite happy down here living my little life with my ponies outside my window. But if sharing some of the things that have and do still currently often cause me pain can help give someone else understanding, because I believe that to understand something is to help giving us control over the process. Like you said, Carrie, you can't, get over it. That so annoys me too. You don't get over grief. There's only
No.
one thing to do, and that is wade right through the middle of it and walk eventually out the other side.
Yeah.
There's no over, around, or avoid.
No, there's just through. And hopefully you
So
have somebody walking next to you to help you
yep.
with it.
And so, like Carrie said, for anyone listening, um, if any of our stories can help you know that you are not alone and give you a place to understand some of the confusing things from, then that's what we're here for. Drop a line below.
Yep. We're always
Tell
here
us
to
what you
help
want to talk
people
about.
process, that's for sure.
Yeah. I've got nothing else to say on this subject
Yeah.
for now.
Yeah, I'm good. So we'll be signing off. Please like, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.